My beloved brothers and sisters, one of the greatest sources of pain in life is depending on people for our happiness. We expect others to stay, to care, to understand us, and when they don't, our hearts break. But the more you chase validation, the more disappointed you become. Real peace begins when you stop expecting from people and start finding comfort in Allah instead. The Prophet taught us that the strongest believer is the one whose heart depends only on Allah, because when you rely on Him, you don't fear being abandoned, ignored, or forgotten. You don't need constant attention or approval to feel valuable. You learn to stand alone with dignity, to heal without begging, and to smile without needing the world to approve. Being happy alone doesn't mean isolating yourself. It means building a heart that is complete with or without the company of others. Because when Allah is enough for you, no one can make you feel empty. Happiness comes from Allah, not from people. True happiness begins when the heart stops demanding from creation. Most people don't realize how much suffering they carry simply because they expect others to make them feel valued. You give people the authority to decide your worth by craving their approval. You hand them control over your mood, your self-respect, and even your sense of purpose. Yet people are changeable, fragile, inconsistent. How can something happiness comes from Allah, not from people imperfect, fill your heart perfectly? Real happiness is not found in the unreliable. It is found in the one who never changes. People can comfort you, but they cannot complete you. They may love you today and be distant tomorrow. They may understand you in one moment and misunderstand you the next. No matter how sincere someone is, they cannot carry the weight of your emotional needs forever. Human beings were not created to keep your soul alive. That responsibility belongs to the one who breathed life into you. Happiness collapses the moment you build it on mortal hearts, instead of the eternal. When you seek happiness from people, you make your emotions dependent on their reactions. If they praise you, you feel good. If they ignore you, you feel worthless. If they change, you break. You spend your life trying to keep others close so you don't lose yourself. But the soul that depends on people is always anxious, always chasing, always terrified of being forgotten. It is not people you need to hold on to. It is Allah. The heart was created to be at peace only when it connects to its Creator. You can fill it with entertainment, work, friendships, relationships, or achievements, but it will still hunger for something deeper. The heart is like a lock, and the world offers many keys, yet none of them fit except the remembrance of Allah. The moment you turn back to Him, you feel a familiarity like you're finally home after wandering for years, trying to fit in places not meant for your soul. Happiness is not loud. It doesn't come from being seen, admired, or surrounded by people. It comes quietly like a secret conversation between you and Allah. It appears in sujud when your forehead touches the ground and your let go of expectations to protect your peace heart finally stops pretending to be strong. It appears when you recite Quran and feel your chest soften, as though Allah Himself is answering your confusion. Happiness lives in the unseen moments where your heart connects to its source. When Allah becomes your source of happiness, you stop putting pressure on relationships. You don't need people to constantly reassure you. You don't panic when someone pulls away. You don't break when someone leaves. You can love with kindness without being dependent. You can care without losing yourself. You can give without expecting anything back. Love becomes purer because it is not built on need, it is built on sincerity. The irony of life is that the more you depend on people for happiness, the more they disappoint you. And the more your heart depends on Allah, the more Allah brings the right people into your life without you chasing them. When the soul becomes rich with remembrance, the world becomes a gift instead of a requirement. You are happy with or without company. You are stable with or without attention because your heart has already found its nourishment. Many people fear loneliness not because they are alone, but because their happiness is external. They need noise to distract them, affection to feel worthy, and attention to feel alive. But loneliness becomes peaceful when your heart is accompanied by Allah. You no longer need company to escape yourself. You become friends with your own soul. You are no longer running from silence because silence becomes a place where Allah fills you with calmness. Allah does not ask you to isolate yourself only to free your heart from depending on creation. You can enjoy people, work, success, and family, but your happiness should not collapse if they change. True emotional freedom is when everything you love enhances your connection to Allah, not replaces it. When the heart is full of Allah, life becomes balanced. You love others without losing yourself, and you stand strong without needing anyone to hold you. When you choose Allah over people, you do not become detached. You build your heart through gratitude, and worship become complete. You stop using others as emotional bandages. You stop begging for support. You stop expecting others to heal your emptiness. You start giving love from a place of abundance instead of need. Happiness becomes a relationship with Allah that strengthens every relationship around you. Love becomes healthier when it is not feeding your insecurities. Happiness grows every time you worship with sincerity. Salah is not just a ritual, it is medicine. Vikar is not repetition, it is nourishment. Quran is not recitation, it is oxygen for a suffocating soul. When you are distressed, the Quran removes heaviness. When you feel lost, Vikar anchors you. When you are overwhelmed, Salah clears your heart like rain washing dust from a window. The heart is most alive when it remembers its Creator. It is not the world that makes life beautiful. It is gratitude. Even small blessings become precious when you see them through Allah. A simple cup of water tastes sweeter. A quiet moment becomes meaningful. A small act of kindness feels profound. Gratitude does not change your life. It changes your vision. And when your vision changes, your life suddenly feels rich without needing more. The world constantly tells us that happiness depends on achievement, popularity, love, or wealth. But the heart knows better. It doesn't crave applause. It craves peace. It doesn't crave ownership. It craves contentment. It doesn't crave being surrounded. It craves being understood, and no one understands you more than the one who created you. Allah knows the contradictions in your heart, the battles in your mind, and the secrets behind your tears. A meaningful life begins when you ask less from people and more from Allah. Instead of saying, "Make me happy," say, "Make me grateful." Instead of saying, "Take away my pain," say, "Give me strength." Instead of saying, "Change them," say, "Purify my heart." Happiness is not having perfect circumstances. It is having a heart that trusts its Lord in every circumstance. When your happiness comes from Allah, the highs of life do not intoxicate you, and the lows do not destroy you. You become balanced. You silence, solitude, and self-respect strengthen. You don't become arrogant when blessed, and you don't become hopeless when tested. You see blessings as opportunities to thank Allah, and trials as invitations to return to Allah. Your heart is not controlled by swings of emotion. It is anchored by faith. You stop trying to make everyone love you. You focus instead on becoming someone Allah loves. You stop needing compliments to feel confident. You stop needing attention to feel seen. You stop letting people define you. You begin to define yourself by how close you are to Allah. The world's judgment becomes irrelevant compared to Allah's acceptance, and that shift brings peace deeper than applause ever could. The heart that depends on Allah becomes a giver. It comforts others without expecting comfort back. It supports others without seeking recognition. It loves without controlling. It forgives without bitterness. Such a heart is powerful because it has stopped needing anything from creation. It serves Allah through serving people, but it does not serve people to feed a starving ego. It becomes a source of light instead of a seeker of validation. When you feel empty, it is not a sign you need more people. It is a sign you need more connection with Allah. When the soul is unfulfilled, it begins to drain relationships, jobs, and pleasure for meaning. But nothing created can fill a void that was designed to be filled by worship. The emptiness you feel is not a flaw. It is a compass pointing you back to your Lord. Do not run to the world when your heart is hurting. Run to Allah. Do not search for someone to fix you. Ask Allah to heal you. Do not wait for someone to understand your pain. Tell Allah what no one else can hear. Happiness flows from being close to Allah, not from being close to people. And the closer you are to Him, the more peaceful you become with or without others. When you finally allow Allah to be your comfort, your support, your listener, your provider, your refuge, your friend, happiness stops being fragile. No one can break you with their absence, and no one can control you with their presence. You stop living for attention. You stop fearing rejection. You stop chasing love, because the heart that finds its happiness in Allah becomes unbreakable, complete, and when Allah is enough for you, no one can break you beautifully free. Let go of expectations to protect your peace. Most of our emotional pain does not come from what people do to us, but from what we expect them to do. We assume others should care the way we care, understand the way we understand, or love the way we love. When they don't, we feel betrayed, but the real betrayal comes from our own expectations. We create an image of how someone should behave, then punish ourselves when they act according to who they really are. Peace begins when you stop demanding from people what they never promised to give you. Expectations are invisible contracts you write without the other person's consent. You expect a friend to check on you, a family member to appreciate you, or a partner to always understand you. Yet you never asked them, and they never agreed. When they fail to fulfill your expectations, you call it disappointment, but it's really the collision between reality and imagination. Letting go of expectations doesn't make you cold, it makes you free. Letting go of expectations does not mean you stop loving people. It means you stop suffering because of them. You can care without demanding care back. You can be sincere without needing reciprocation. You can do good without waiting for applause. When your heart no longer waits for others to complete it, you experience a love that isn't heavy, a friendship that isn't exhausting, and a life that isn't full of emotional debt. When you stop expecting from people, your relationships become healthier. You begin to appreciate what they give instead of criticizing what they don't. You become grateful for sincerity instead of hunting for perfection. You start valuing effort instead of measuring flaws. You realize that no one is obligated to heal your wounds, carry your emotions, or live up to a version outro. Learn to stand with Allah alone of themselves you have in your mind. Acceptance is the soil where peace grows. Expectations turn kindness into currency. When you do something good hoping to receive something in return, you end up disappointed. But when you do good for the sake of Allah, the heart becomes weightless. You no longer say, "I did this for them," and instead you say, "I did this for him." Your reward is no longer delayed because Allah sees what others overlook. You free yourself from the emotional debt of waiting for humans to repay you. The less you expect, the more you observe. You begin to see the real nature of people without the blur of desire. You see who loves genuinely, not because they give you everything, but because they try. You see who cares through small gestures, not dramatic expressions. You understand that love is not obvious in words alone. Sometimes it's hidden in subtle patience, quiet understanding, or silent loyalty. Letting go of expectations sharpens your vision of sincerity. When you expect others to never hurt you, you forget they are human. Humans are imperfect, emotional, forgetful, and sometimes selfish just like you. Expecting flawlessness creates pressure, resentment, and emotional distance. But when you allow people to simply be human, you forgive with ease. Let go without bitterness and love without fear. Imperfection stops being a threat and becomes a reminder that we all need mercy. Letting go of expectations doesn't mean accepting disrespect. It means understanding that you cannot control how others behave, but you can control what you tolerate. You can love someone and still walk away if their presence destroys your peace. You can care deeply and still choose distance if staying means losing yourself. Peace is not gained by being passive, but by setting boundaries without resentment. Expectations make your happiness dependent on the actions of others. When they don't meet your standards, your mood collapses. You let someone's behavior define your day, your worth, even your identity. Letting go of expectations is reclaiming responsibility for your own joy. You stop waiting for someone to make you feel seen or appreciated. You begin to nurture your own peace, protect your own heart, and take ownership of your emotional life. When you release expectations, gratitude grows naturally. You begin to notice the little things, the small efforts someone makes, the imperfect yet sincere attempts to care, the unexpected kindness. Life becomes richer because you no longer overlook blessings trying to find perfection. You stop taking actions personally and start receiving them as gifts. Gratitude replaces entitlement, and peace replaces disappointment. The mind that expects constantly is always calculating they should have called, they should have helped, they should have supported me. But the heart that surrenders says if they do, Alhamdulillah. And if they don't, I still have Allah. You stop measuring relationships based on who stays or who gives. You start measuring life based on who brings you closer to your Lord and who brings you closer to your own peace. When you let go of expectations, you stop performing for people. You dress, speak, act, serve, and live for Allah's approval, not the world's applause. You don't need to impress anyone. You don't need to explain yourself to everyone. You don't need appreciation as fuel. You are no longer emotionally hungry because your sustenance comes from worship, not validation. Your identity becomes grounded in sincerity. Expectations mislead us into believing others owe us loyalty, attention, or understanding. When they fail, we often feel betrayed. But the real betrayal is expecting human beings to act like angels. No one can meet every need you have. Allah designed the world this way, so your heart always has something to return to, something higher, something eternal, something unbroken. If people could fulfill you completely, you would never seek Him. Letting go of expectations reveals an important truth. Love without need is the purest form of love. When you don't cling, you don't fear loss. When you don't demand, you don't feel disappointed. You give freely, forgive easily, and walk away peacefully when necessary. You don't use love to control. You don't use affection to trap. You let people be who they are, and you choose who you are around them without emotional chains. Peace doesn't come from fixing others. It comes from fixing your own attachment to them. You cannot force someone to be consistent. You cannot demand them to care the way you do. You cannot teach them your heart's language. You can only choose to protect your peace by releasing the need for them to be someone they're not. Liberation is not changing people. It is changing your expectations of them. Many relationships fail not because love disappears, but because expectations suffocate it. When love becomes a checklist, it stops being love. When sacrifice becomes demand, it stops being sacrifice. When attention becomes obligation, it stops being sincere. Letting go of expectations allows love to breathe again. It turns duty back into generosity and effort back into affection. The heart that expects less loves more. It doesn't keep score. It doesn't manipulate. It doesn't hold grudges waiting for compensation. It gives without fearing loss because it trusts that everything given for Allah's sake returns through Allah's mercy. With this mindset, you stop treating people like investments and you start treating them like blessings, temporary, imperfect, and valuable. When you stop expecting people to keep you happy, you begin to cultivate happiness from within. You invest in your character, your worship, your skills, your well-being. You become emotionally self-sufficient. You no longer look for someone to fill your silence. You turn silence into a sanctuary. You no longer crave someone to rescue you. You learn to stand with Allah as your support. Strength grows from solitude. Letting go of expectations removes the weight of disappointment and replaces it with acceptance. You begin to live lightly. You forgive more often. You appreciate more deeply. You stop clinging to outcomes and start surrendering to Allah's decree. Life stops being a battle with people and becomes a journey with yourself and your Lord. Peace is not found in controlling others. It is found in mastering your own reactions. The less you expect from people, the more Allah surprises you through them. You stop chasing and Allah sends the right souls to your life. You stop demanding and Allah places love where you least expect. You stop begging and Allah fills your heart with contentment. You realize that peace was never about changing people. It was about letting go of how you thought they should. True freedom is when your heart no longer contracts or expands based on how others treat you. You remain calm when you are praised and calm when you are ignored. You remain gentle when someone loves you and gentle when someone leaves. You interact with others out of kindness, not dependence, and this balance makes you unshakable. Because when you let go of expectations, nothing can steal the peace Allah has placed inside you. Build your heart through gratitude and worship. Gratitude is not simply saying Alhamdulillah with the tongue. It is a way of seeing. It is a shift in perspective where you stop looking at what is missing and begin to appreciate what is already there. Life becomes heavy when you chase what you don't have and light when you value what you do. Gratitude turns ordinary moments into miracles, hardships into lessons, and loneliness into intimacy with Allah. It is the lens that transforms pain into growth and blessings into gifts. Worship is not a ritual, it is rehabilitation for the heart. Just as the body needs food to survive, the soul needs salah, vikar and Quran to stay alive. You cannot expect peace while starving your soul. The heart becomes restless when disconnected from its creator, and only worship can return it to balance. Salah straightens your inner chaos, the way you straighten your body in prayer. Cleanses your thoughts the way wudu cleanses your body. Worship is nourishment. Gratitude protects the heart from envy, resentment, and despair. When you recognize that every blessing is from Allah, you no longer compare your life to others. You no longer feel threatened by the success of those around you. You stop looking sideways and start looking upward. Jealousy shrinks in the presence of gratitude because you begin to trust that Allah's plan for others does not diminish His plan for you. What is yours will arrive and what is not will never bring you peace. Worship protects the heart from arrogance. A man can be intelligent, wealthy, influential, or admired, yet without worship his heart becomes empty. Pride grows in the heart that forgets who gave blessings. Worship humbles you gently. Every bow reminds you that greatness belongs only to Allah. Every sujud teaches your ego to surrender. Allah does not need your worship. You need worship to protect yourself from becoming enslaved to pride. Gratitude turns life into a classroom of blessings, the warmth of sunlight, the taste of water, the laughter of a child, the ability to breathe, think, and walk. These are miracles disguised as normally. Gratitude trains you to notice. When you notice, you appreciate. And when you appreciate, you love Allah, not just in prayer but in every moment. Gratitude is not a list. It is a lifestyle of awareness. Worship trains the heart to release control. Human beings chase certainty, but worship teaches surrender. You do your best and leave the rest to Allah. You stop forcing life to obey your plans and start trusting that there is wisdom in delays, blessings in disappointments, and purpose in pain. Worship frees you from the burden of trying to be your own God. It returns you to being a servant with peace instead of a controller with anxiety. Gratitude softens the most wounded hearts. Even in hardship, there are things to be thankful for. A small relief, a kind person, an unexpected smile, a moment of calm, a breath that doesn't hurt. Gratitude doesn't deny pain, it illuminates the light within it. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is Allah giving me through this?" Gratitude turns complaints into lessons and patience into sweetness. Worship softens the heart by bringing you back to your origin. In sujud, you put your face on the ground, surrendering every worry, desire, and fear. It is the lowest physical position, yet the highest spiritual elevation. In that moment, you are closest to Allah. Worship is a reminder that no matter how high life takes you, true honor comes from bending your head to the one above all things. Gratitude transforms relationships. When you appreciate people for their efforts instead of criticizing them for their imperfections, your love becomes gentle. You stop trying to change others and start valuing their presence. You notice their kindness rather than their flaws. Gratitude turns relationships into rewards rather than expectations. It teaches you to cherish instead of demand and to love without entitlement. Worship transforms loneliness. Many fear being alone because they do not know how to be with themselves. Worship turns solitude into a sanctuary. It makes silence meaningful and nights peaceful. You begin to enjoy being with Allah, being with your heart, being with your thoughts. Loneliness no longer becomes emptiness. It becomes connection. You stop needing noise to feel alive because your soul finds companionship in remembrance. Gratitude protects you from the poison of dissatisfaction. When you constantly focus on what you lack, nothing will ever be enough. Not wealth, not love, not status, not attention. Gratitude breaks this hunger. It turns "I need more" into "I already have more than I deserve." It turns "why me" into Alhamdulillah. Always a grateful heart does not live in scarcity. It lives in abundance. Worship protects you from the illusion of independence. When life is smooth, you might forget Allah. Worship reminds you that ease is a gift, not a guarantee. You don't pray only to escape pain. You pray to preserve peace. You don't remember Allah because you are desperate. You remember Him because you are grateful. Worship is not a rescue boat. It is the ocean where the soul learns to swim. Gratitude enriches your life without changing your circumstances. Two people can experience the same day, yet one feels miserable while the other feels blessed. The difference is not in events but in perception. Gratitude teaches you to see with the heart instead of the ego. It focuses on Allah's generosity instead of your expectations. When you see life as a gift, every moment becomes worth living. Worship enriches your life by giving it purpose. You wake up with meaning, you sleep with contentment, you work, love, struggle, and sacrifice with intention. Worship turns routine into reward and exhaustion into ibadah. Feeding your family becomes charity. Working becomes trustworthiness. Smiling becomes sana. When you worship, life itself becomes worship. Gratitude strengthens patience. A grateful heart is less likely to complain, panic, or give up. It knows that blessings are on the way even if they are unseen. It trusts that Allah never withholds except to give later. Gratitude makes patience sweet, not bitter. You wait with hope instead of frustration because you believe that Allah's timing is always better than your plans. Worship strengthens resilience. You cannot collapse easily when your heart kneels in prayer. You cannot feel empty when fills your voice. You cannot feel lost when Allah answers in the Quran. Worship builds endurance, stretches faith, and strengthens your emotional foundation. Life becomes less frightening because your anchor is not in circumstances but in Allah. Gratitude builds humility. Instead of saying "I earned this," you say "Allah blessed me with this." Instead of saying "I deserve better," you say "Alhamdulillah for what I have." Gratitude turns entitlement into appreciation. It replaces ego with thankfulness. A grateful person cannot be arrogant because he sees blessings as gifts, not achievements. Worship builds discipline. To stand for Fajr, you fight sleep. To fast, you fight desire. To give charity, you fight greed. Worship trains you to choose Allah over impulses. You learn that not every desire deserves to be followed. This discipline bleeds into every aspect of life. You become more focused, more controlled, more purposeful. Worship is a training camp for the soul. Gratitude brings joy even in imperfection. You stop waiting for life to be perfect before you appreciate it. You learn to love the journey, not the destination. You cherish small moments, a breath of relief, a peaceful morning, a sincere smile. Gratitude allows you to taste happiness before the blessing even arrives, because you trust it is on its way. Worship brings peace even in chaos. You can be surrounded by noise yet feel silent inside. You can experience hardship yet still feel protected. You can be misunderstood yet still feel seen. Worship gives your heart a home that cannot be invaded by the world. You learn to live above the storm instead of drowning in it. Peace becomes internal, not conditional. Gratitude teaches you to look back with thankfulness. Even the painful chapters start to make sense. You begin to see how every loss prepared you, every delay matured you, and every heartbreak purified you. Gratitude rewrites your past not by changing what happened, but by changing how you understand it. You realize Allah never abandoned you. He carried you. Worship teaches you to look forward with tranquility. You no longer fear what will happen tomorrow. You no longer obsess over your future. You plan, but you don't panic. You strive, but you don't despair. Worship gives you a quiet certainty that the same Allah who protected you yesterday will guide you tomorrow. The future stops being a threat and becomes a trust. Gratitude deepens your love for Allah. You love Him because He gave you what you wanted. But you also love Him because He protected you from what was not good for you. You love Him for the gifts you see and the ones you never noticed. You love Him for the prayers He answered and for the ones He replaced with something better. Gratitude makes love conscious. Worship deepens your connection to Allah. You speak to Him, stand before Him, cry to Him, thank Him, and rely on Him. He becomes your refuge, your friend, your listener, your comfort. Worship is the language of love between the soul and its Creator. It is how the heart says, "I need you," without words. It is how the heart feels understood even in silence. Gratitude frees the heart from fear of losing blessings. You don't cling nervously to what you have. You enjoy it, value it, and remain grateful for it. But you know life and death, gain and loss, ease and difficulty are all part of Allah's wisdom. Gratitude makes you appreciate without obsession, love without fear, and live without panic. Worship frees the heart from fear of outcomes. You no longer obsess over success, failure, acceptance, or rejection. You work hard, but you know Allah decides the result. Worship shifts the burden from your shoulders to His. You no longer need to control life. You just need to trust the one who does. Gratitude makes the heart generous. When you are thankful, you share. You give because you know Allah has given you more than enough. You help because you remember how you were helped. Gratitude makes you a source of ease for others. You become a mirror of Allah's kindness to you. Worship makes the heart sincere. When you worship for Allah alone, your good deeds become pure. You do not serve to impress people, nor speak to gain attention. Worship removes the hunger for validation. Your goodness becomes real because it seeks no reward except Allah's pleasure. Gratitude illuminates your life and worship anchors it. Together they make the heart steady, peaceful, and alive. Gratitude keeps you aware of blessings, and worship keeps you connected to the one who gives them. Gratitude opens your eyes, and worship opens your soul. And the heart that carries both becomes unbreakable, not because life is easy, but because it has found its source in Allah. Silence, solitude, and self-respect strengthen you. Silence is not emptiness, it is clarity. Most people fear silence because it exposes the noise they carry inside their minds. When life is quiet, your thoughts become louder, and you begin to hear what you have been avoiding. Silence forces you to face your fears, your insecurities, and your unresolved emotions. It takes courage to sit with yourself and listen to your own truth without distractions. Yet, the heart that learns to embrace silence becomes stronger than the heart that keeps running from itself. You do not need constant stimulation to feel alive. When you always surround yourself with noise, music, conversations, entertainment, or people, you drown out your inner voice. Silence is where intuition speaks. It is where you understand what your soul needs and what your heart is tired of. Silence teaches you what to keep, what to release, and what to protect. Only in quiet moments can you see clearly what your life has been trying to tell you. Solitude is not loneliness. Loneliness is a craving for others. Solitude is a meeting with yourself. One is rooted in lack, the other in strength. When you choose solitude willingly, you give your heart a chance to recharge. You stop living through the expectations of others and start discovering who you are beyond their opinions. You begin to learn your values, your limits, and your purpose. Solitude is not an escape from life. It is how you enter life with clarity. A strong person is not someone surrounded by many people, but someone who can stand alone without shutting down. Solitude provides the space to heal without explanation, to think without interruption, and to grow without judgment. When you are constantly surrounded by others, you absorb their emotions, their problems, their energy. Solitude gives you your energy back. It returns your focus to yourself and teaches you that peace is not found in crowds. It is cultivated within. Silence builds emotional discipline. In silence, you learn that not every thought deserves to be spoken. Not every insult needs a response, and not every betrayal requires confrontation. Silence trains your ego to step aside and allows your wisdom to step forward. You stop reacting impulsively and begin responding thoughtfully. You choose calmness instead of escalation, patience instead of anger. Silence becomes your strength, not your weakness. The more you practice silence, the less chaos controls you. You start to understand the difference between words that heal and words that hurt. You begin to see how much unnecessary drama is created by reacting too quickly. Silence protects your peace from emotional storms. It becomes a shield against arguments, misunderstandings, and regretful speech. You don't suppress your feelings, you simply choose not to let them control your behavior. Solitude teaches you to be emotionally independent. Too many people use others to avoid dealing with their own pain. They use relationships as distractions, friendships as escape routes, and noise as medicine. But healing requires space. Solitude helps you process your hurt, acknowledge your sadness, and release your trauma. Only when you heal on your own can you love others without using them as bandages for your wounds. Self-respect is born in solitude. It is in the quiet moments that you realize what you truly deserve. When you step away from people who mistreat you or drain you, you reclaim your dignity. You stop tolerating disrespect just to avoid being alone. Solitude teaches you to choose yourself. It gives you the strength to walk away even if your heart wants to stay. Self-respect is not pride. It is protecting your worth. There is a powerful difference between isolation, forced by others, and solitude chosen by you. When you choose solitude, it becomes empowerment. You no longer feel abandoned because you discover that your company is enough. You don't feel forgotten because you learn to remember yourself. Loneliness disappears when you stop waiting for others to fill what you can nourish within. Solitude becomes self-respect in action. When you become comfortable with silence, conversations become intentional. You stop speaking to fill awkwardness and begin speaking to share meaning. You no longer talk to prove yourself, impress others, or win arguments. You speak only when there is purpose. Silence teaches you that words have weight and careless speech wastes energy. You start valuing communication that elevates, not just entertains. The heart needs silence the way the lungs need air. Without quiet, the soul suffocates under constant stimulation. Silence gives you space to breathe emotionally. It slows your thoughts, calms your nervous system, and anchors your spirit. It offers the mental room needed for reflection, creativity, and wisdom. Most answers you search for externally are actually waiting for you in silence. Solitude allows you to detach from the world long enough to see it clearly. When you step back, you notice which relationships drain you and which ones nourish you. You notice habits that weaken you and habits that strengthen you. Solitude reveals what truly matters and what never deserved your attention. It is the mirror where your life becomes honest. You cannot evaluate your life while constantly distracted by it. People who fear solitude often fear themselves. They fear facing their wounds, regrets, or emptiness. But running from yourself is the same as running in circles. You never arrive anywhere. Solitude breaks that cycle. It forces maturity. It invites healing. It demands honesty. You cannot grow if you keep distracting yourself from who you are. Growth begins where silence begins. Self-respect grows when you stop chasing people who are not good for your heart. Silence helps you observe how others treat you without the fog of attachment. You see who listens to you, who uses you, who values you, and who ignores you. When you stop begging for attention, you learn the difference between presence and availability. Some people show up only when they need something. Solitude helps you see that clearly. When you respect yourself, you do not allow everyone access to you. You become selective with your time, your energy, and your vulnerability. You don't overshare, overgive, or overstay in places that diminish you. You stop proving your worth and start protecting it. Self-respect is understanding that not everyone deserves a seat in your life just because they want one. Silence is a teacher that shows you who listens to you without words, who understands your silence more than your speech, and who becomes uncomfortable when you are not performing for their approval. Silence exposes authenticity. It reveals depth. It helps you see the emotional landscape of your connections. Some relationships thrive in silence, others dissolve. Silence reveals the truth you were too busy to notice. Solitude makes your love healthier. When you do not depend on people for identity, validation, or emotional survival, you can love freely without clinging. You love because it brings joy, not because you fear being alone. You choose relationships that respect your heart rather than rescue your loneliness. Solitude teaches you that love is not possession. It is appreciation without neediness. Self-respect teaches you the power of walking away. Not every fight needs to be fought, and not every relationship needs to be saved. Walking away is not giving up. It is choosing peace over conflict, dignity over desperation, and truth over illusions. You stop begging for people to stay. You stop trying to convince them of your value. Self-respect whispers, if peace costs me myself, I cannot afford it. Silence builds inner strength because it teaches you to rely on your mind and your faith. You no longer need external noise to distract you, nor constant reassurance to validate you. You begin to trust your intuition, your wisdom, and your connection to Allah. Your heart becomes anchored in truth, not applause. Your decisions become grounded in clarity, not pressure. Silence shapes you from the inside out. Solitude becomes a spiritual practice. When you use it to reconnect with Allah, it is in moments of quiet reflection that the heart speaks the language of dua. You begin to feel Allah's presence beyond words. You realize you were never truly alone, only surrounded by the wrong things. Solitude becomes sacred when you fill it with remembrance, reflection, and gratitude. It becomes a doorway to peace. Self-respect deepens when you realize that your worth does not decrease when someone fails to see it. Their blindness does not define your value. Their silence does not weaken your voice. You are not less because someone treated you poorly. You are more when you choose to treat yourself with dignity regardless of how others behave. Respecting yourself is not about ego. It is about honor. Silence teaches you to listen to your heart before reacting to the world. In silence, you learn to observe your emotions before expressing them. You understand your anger instead of unleashing it. You process your sadness instead of dumping it on others. Silence gives you control over your reactions, and control over your reactions gives you control over your peace. Silence is emotional maturity. Solitude teaches you that not everyone needs access to your vulnerability. It is a mistake to share your wounds with those who do not know how to hold them with compassion. Solitude allows you to become your own healer before expecting others to understand you. You learn to soothe your pain instead of outsourcing your healing. When you heal alone, you do not bleed on others unintentionally. Self-respect makes you protect your time as if it were treasure. You stop wasting hours on conversations that go nowhere, arguments that change nothing, and people who do not value presence. You start investing your time in growth, creativity, faith, and rest. Your time becomes a reflection of your priorities. What you give it to either builds you or breaks you, and self-respect chooses wisely. Silence teaches you that thinking before speaking is more powerful than speaking before thinking. Most conflicts are born from rushed words. Most regrets come from reactions not filtered through reflection. Silence is not withholding, it is refining. It turns words into wisdom instead of weapons. The more you think before you speak, the less you need to apologize later. Solitude makes you comfortable with doing things alone. You eat alone, work alone, pray alone, travel alone, learn alone, not out of sadness, but out of freedom. You stop waiting for others to join you before you live your life. You stop postponing your joy. Solitude teaches you that your worth is not measured by how many people share your table, but by how whole you feel even when the chair next to you is empty. Self-respect requires boundaries, and boundaries are maintained through silence. You do not need to shout to protect your peace. You simply need to step back. You do not need to explain your decisions endlessly. You simply need to follow them. Boundaries are not walls. They are doors with locks. You choose who enters based on respect, not guilt. Silence is how you close the door without drama. Silence, solitude, and self-respect are interconnected. Silence shows you your thoughts. Solitude shows you your needs. Self-respect teaches you how to honor them together. They shape a person who lives with intention rather than impulse, peace rather than noise, and dignity rather than desperation. You stop chasing life and begin choosing it deliberately. Silence allows you to reflect on the past without drowning in it. Solitude allows you to face the present without distractions. Self-respect allows you to build the future without regret. These three qualities help you separate who you were, who you are becoming, and who you refuse to be again. They create a life where mistakes teach, pain transforms, and growth becomes a commitment. A person who masters silence no longer fears being misunderstood. A person who embraces solitude no longer fears being alone. A person who practices self-respect no longer fears being rejected. These fears lose their power because you no longer depend on external validation for inner peace. You stop seeking permission to exist. You live with confidence rooted in truth, not approval. Silence brings wisdom. Solitude brings healing. Self-respect brings stability. When these qualities merge, you become emotionally independent. You are no longer controlled by the moods of others, the presence of others, or the opinions of others. You become centered, calm, and grounded. People may come and go. Circumstances may rise and fall, but your heart no longer collapses with them. Silence teaches you patience. You give things time before reacting. You wait before judging. You breathe before responding. You allow life to unfold without force. Solitude teaches you presence. You learn to enjoy the moment instead of running ahead. You slow down enough to feel your own existence. Self-respect teaches you priority. You align your choices with your values rather than your fears. Together, they turn you into someone steady. You do not need to announce your growth. Silence lets your actions speak. You do not need to prove your worth. Self-respect lets your boundaries speak. You do not need to escape loneliness. Solitude lets your peace speak. Strength is often silent, not because it lacks power, but because it has nothing to prove. True evolution is quiet, deep, and gradual. In silence you meet your mind. In solitude you meet your soul. In self-respect you meet your true character. These are the places where you discover who you are. When no one is watching, you become authentic, not performative. You stop living to be seen. You start living to be real. You find the version of yourself that does not rely on applause to feel alive. The world teaches you to chase noise, crowds, attention, and approval. But wisdom teaches you to seek silence, solitude, and self-respect. You stop measuring life by how busy it looks and start measuring it by how peaceful it feels. You stop asking how many people are with you and start asking whether you are with yourself. You switch from seeking validation to seeking meaning. A life built on silence becomes thoughtful. A life built on solitude becomes grounded. A life built on self-respect becomes dignified. These qualities turn suffering into strength, confusion into clarity, and fear into independence. You begin to live not as someone desperate for acceptance, but as someone complete within themselves. And that completeness is not arrogance, it is alignment. When you practice silence, you learn restraint. When you practice solitude, you learn self-awareness. When you practice self-respect, you learn self-control. Together, they turn your heart into a fortress, peaceful, protected, and stable. The world can shake around you, but it cannot shake you. You become rooted, not restless. Eventually, silence stops being uncomfortable. Solitude stops being painful. Self-respect stops being difficult. They become your companions, your protectors, your teachers. They help you navigate life with patience, wisdom, and dignity. You stop reacting to every storm and start walking through rain with calm steps. You stop demanding understanding from others and start understanding yourself. The heart that masters silence, solitude, and self-respect no longer breaks from temporary people. It no longer collapses under disappointment. It no longer compromises its dignity for company. It walks through life with internal reassurance, strong, focused, and at peace. Not because life became easier, but because your soul did. And when you become that person, you realize something profound. You are never truly waiting for people. You were waiting for yourself. You were waiting to discover your strength, your peace, your boundaries, your worth. Silence helped you hear it. Solitude helped you find it. Self-respect helped you keep it. And now you walk into life with a heart no longer dependent but deeply anchored not in noise, not in crowds, but in truth. When Allah is enough for you, no one can break you. When Allah becomes the source of your strength, the world loses the ability to weaken you. People may walk away, but your heart doesn't collapse. Situations may become difficult, but your hope doesn't die. You don't need life to be perfect to feel at peace, because peace no longer comes from outside. It flows from the one who controls everything. When Allah is enough, you stop depending on temporary things to hold your eternal soul. You cannot break a heart that has surrendered to Allah. You may hurt it, but it will heal through Him. You may disappoint it, but it will rise again through Him. You may abandon it, but Allah will fill it with something better. When a person finds comfort in Allah, pain does not destroy them. It purifies them. Hardship does not weaken them. It elevates them. Loss does not empty them. It teaches them where true fullness exists. Relying on people makes your happiness unstable. It rises and falls based on their moods, their attention, their sincerity, but relying on Allah gives your heart stability. People change, but Allah doesn't. People forget, but Allah never does. People break promises, but Allah fulfills them in the perfect way at the perfect time. When Allah is enough, you are never stranded, never overlooked, never unloved. You are held by the one who never leaves. Life becomes lighter when you stop expecting people to carry emotional burdens they were never created to carry. Even the most loving hearts cannot keep you steady forever. They may try, but they are human, limited in patience, strength, and consistency. Allah, however, does not get tired of holding you. He does not fail you. He does not need a break from you. When you rely on Him, you are supported in ways no human can ever offer. True freedom comes when you stop trying to control how life unfolds and start trusting the one who is unfolding it. When you rely on Allah, you stop fearing the future because you know He will meet you there. You stop regretting the past because you know He planned it for you. You stop being anxious about the present because you know He is protecting you. Your heart becomes tranquil, not because life is easy, but because you know who is guiding it. When you love Allah more than you fear loss, nothing can enslave your heart. You do not cling to people desperately. You do not make idols out of relationships. You do not beg for acceptance. You love others with kindness. But you do not rely on them for survival. You let love be a gift instead of a necessity. Even if someone leaves, you don't collapse because your anchor was never them. It was Allah. The heart that depends on Allah becomes emotionally independent. You no longer need validation to feel worthy. You no longer chase attention to feel alive. You no longer beg for love to feel complete. You feel whole because Allah fills your emptiness. You feel valued because Allah sees your efforts. You feel loved because His mercy surrounds you. When people fail you, you don't break. You just turn closer to Him. When Allah is enough for you, patience becomes easier. You are no longer rushing life, forcing outcomes, or panicking at delays. You understand that what is meant for you will reach you exactly when Allah decides. You trust His timing more than your impatience. You stop worrying about when something will happen and start believing in why it will happen. Patience becomes not waiting for life to change but trusting Allah while it does. You cannot be manipulated by anyone when Allah is your support. People gain power over you only when you depend on them to feel significant. When you depend on Allah, you don't beg to be chosen. You don't chase attention. You don't fear rejection. You give without needing something back. You love without losing yourself. And you walk away from anything that harms your heart. Your dignity comes from Allah, not from people. A believer who trusts Allah doesn't fear heartbreak. They know that if something leaves, it's because Allah has something better prepared. They don't suffer from why me, but move with Alhamdulillah, and it is written. They understand that even pain has a purpose, even loss has wisdom, even delays have protection. They don't ask life to be easy. They ask Allah to make their heart strong. When Allah is your source of comfort, you no longer search for distractions. You don't drown your pain in worldly escape. You don't need to numb your feelings through entertainment, company, or noise. You sit with Allah and allow Him to heal you. You let your tears become dua. Your fears become tawakkul. Your confusion becomes submission. Pain becomes a doorway to closeness instead of a reason to break apart. When you worship Allah with sincerity, your heart becomes stronger than your circumstances. The one who stands in sajud cannot be defeated by life. The one who cries in front of Allah does not collapse in front of people. The one who seeks answers from the Quran doesn't get lost in this world. Salah is not just an act, it is armor. Vikra is not repetition, it is protection. Quran is not sound, it is guidance. If Allah is enough for you, loneliness becomes peaceful. You are not alone when you have the one who created the universe. Being without people no longer frightens you. You stop chasing company just to avoid silence. You begin to enjoy your own presence. You become friends with your soul. You discover depths inside yourself that were hidden beneath noise. Solitude becomes a sanctuary because Allah fills it, When Allah is enough, love becomes pure. You love others with kindness but without attachment. You care deeply but without fear. You support others but without expecting reward. You give and Allah returns. You forgive and Allah heals. You let go and Allah replaces. Love becomes a blessing instead of a burden. You don't cling to people to feel whole. You share your wholeness with them. Your heart stops breaking from rejection when Allah becomes your refuge. You no longer take it personally. When people change, become distant or leave, instead of "Why are they doing this to me?" you say Allah removed them for a reason. You begin to trust His filtering process. Allah takes people out of your life not to punish you, but to protect you. Some hearts are removed so yours can survive. When Allah is enough, your standards rise. You don't tolerate disrespect. You don't settle for half love. You don't accept inconsistency. You stop begging to be understood. You protect your peace because you know Allah values you. You choose relationships that nurture your soul, not just entertain your ego. You become selective, not out of pride, but out of wisdom. When Allah is enough, outcomes stop controlling your emotions. You do your best and let Allah decide the rest. You stop crying because plans failed and start trusting that failures are redirections. You stop clinging to what you want and start submitting to what Allah wills. You understand that His script for your life is more perfect than anything you could write for yourself. No one can break a heart that constantly remembers Allah, because strengthens you quietly even when you are exhausted. Quran heals you subtly even when you are hurting. Sujud lifts you spiritually even when life weighs heavily. The more you involve Allah in your emotional life, the less power anything has to destroy it. Faith is not an escape from hardship. It is the ability to stand through it. When Allah is enough, forgiveness becomes easier. You no longer hold grudges to feed your ego. You don't need revenge to feel powerful. You forgive not because they deserve it, but because your heart deserves peace. You let go, not to release them, but to release yourself. Allah replaces bitterness with tranquility when you choose His mercy over your anger. A believer whose heart is attached to Allah does not collapse at criticism. They don't base their identity on opinions. They don't shrink from judgment. They don't mold themselves to please others. Their worth does not fluctuate based on people's thoughts. They walk with quiet confidence because their value is determined by their Creator, not creation. You stop looking for healing from people who are broken themselves. You stop waiting for someone to save you emotionally. You stop expecting others to understand depth they have never experienced. You take your pain to the one who sees beyond words and heals beyond logic. Allah hears what you don't know how to say and fixes what you don't know how to express. When Allah is enough, hardships don't feel like punishments. They feel like training. You see trials as opportunities to grow closer to Him. You realize that tears cleanse the heart, not weaken it. You understand that the most difficult chapters produce the strongest versions of you. Allah polishes you through discomfort, not through comfort. Faith deepens not in ease, but in reliance. When Allah is enough, hopelessness dies. Even in dark moments, you don't drown in despair. You say, there is wisdom here. Even if you don't understand it, you say, Allah will make a way. Even if you can't see a path yet, the believer's heart sees beyond the difficulty and searches for the mercy hidden behind it. They do not deny pain, they just don't let it define the future. Nobody can control a person whose heart is satisfied by Allah. You cannot be manipulated with love, threatened with abandonment, or controlled through fear. You don't negotiate your dignity to keep someone in your life. You don't compromise your faith to maintain a connection. You know that what leaves is not meant, and what stays is written. You submit to Allah, not to desperation. When Allah is enough, waiting becomes beautiful. You don't suffer while waiting, you grow. You don't panic, you pray. You don't demand, you trust. You know that Allah is not delaying your blessings. He is preparing you for them. You understand that sometimes blessings need you to change before they arrive. Waiting becomes a spiritual journey instead of a psychological torture. The heart that relies on Allah becomes content, not because it has everything, but because it trusts that Allah chooses perfectly. You don't obsess over acquiring more. You appreciate what you already have. You don't feel insecure about the future because you believe it will come with mercy. Contentment becomes your emotional wealth. You feel rich even if nothing material changes. When Allah is enough, you stop questioning your worth. You don't ask, am I enough for them? You ask, am I pleasing to Him? You don't seek attention, you seek sincerity. You don't chase admiration, you chase righteousness. You don't fear being unseen, you fear being disconnected from Allah. Your self-worth becomes rooted in faith, not in visibility. A heart attached to Allah becomes resilient. You learn how to feel deeply without collapsing. You learn how to love sincerely without surrendering your dignity. You learn how to be kind without becoming a doormat. You learn how to give without draining yourself. You learn how to pursue goodness without losing yourself. Resilience is not numbness, it is faith with boundaries. When Allah is enough, you understand that setbacks are not signs of failure but signs of calibration. Allah redirects you from what will harm you even if you think it will help you. He protects you from what you pray for if something better exists. The believer's heart stops being obsessed with answers and becomes obsessed with alignment. Is this taking me closer to Allah? When Allah fills your heart, you no longer fear the unknown. You do not need to see the path to walk it. You do not need to know how everything will unfold to trust the journey. You rely on Allah, not on clarity. You walk with faith, not with certainty. You carry hope, not control. The unknown becomes less scary when you know who controls it. If Allah is enough, you find joy in the smallest things. A sincere dua at dawn becomes sweeter than any compliment. A quiet moment after prayer becomes richer than any entertainment. A single ayah can heal more than 1,000 conversations. Contentment comes from connection, not consumption. You stop needing more because you realize what you have is already from the most generous. No heartbreak can destroy a believer who knows Allah heals hearts. No betrayal can poison a believer who knows Allah defends the oppressed. No loss can devastate a believer who knows Allah replaces. You may cry, you may hurt, you may feel lost for a moment, but you will rise because Allah never abandons the wounded heart that seeks Him. When Allah is enough, you are gentle with yourself. You stop criticizing your journey. You stop rushing your healing. You stop comparing your life to others. You start valuing your own timing because you trust Allah's plan uniquely designed for you. You don't force yourself to be perfect. You commit yourself to be sincere. You understand that Allah loves effort more than results. When Allah fills your heart, you start seeing blessings where others see problems. A struggle becomes a teacher. A delay becomes protection. A disappointment becomes redirection. You realize that life is not against you. Life is guiding you. Allah is not testing you to break you. He is shaping you. Every challenge is an invitation to become someone stronger, wiser, and closer to Him. You cannot break a heart that has put its trust in Allah because it does not stand alone. It does not heal alone. It does not hope alone. A believer walks in this world with unseen assistance. They are protected by prayers they forgot they made, guided by mercy they didn't notice, and supported by angels they never saw. Their strength is invisible because their strength is Allah. Eventually, you reach a point where nothing external controls your inner peace. You love without fear, give without expectation, forgive without resentment, and continue without guarantees. You don't need to hold tightly to anything, because you know the one who holds your destiny is holding your heart. You walk with dignity, resilience, and serenity. And when you finally realize that Allah is truly enough, you don't just survive life. You transcend it, You are no longer a slave to moods, people, or circumstances. You live with a heart anchored in something unbreakable. Pain may visit you, but it cannot destroy you. Loss may shake you, but it cannot uproot you. Because once Allah becomes enough for you, no one and nothing can ever break you again. My dear brothers and sisters, you do not need people to complete you. You only need Allah to hold you. The heart that depends on creation will always feel anxious and disappointed because human beings are limited. They forget, they change, and sometimes they leave. But when your heart depends on the one who never leaves, you carry a peace that no disappointment can break. Being happy alone doesn't mean you push people away. It means you stop tying your happiness to them. It means you stop begging for attention, stop chasing approval, and stop building your worth on someone else's opinion. True strength is when you can smile with Allah's love in your heart, even if the world forgets you. So work on yourself, build your deen, heal your heart, and let your companionship with Allah be stronger than your need for anyone else. Because once you learn to be happy with Allah, you will never feel empty again, whether people stay or